The spinster inherited the crumbling estate. She found a chest that changed history. Victorian England, 1887. The moors of Yorkshire stretched endlessly beneath an October sky, heavy with the promise of rain. Rising from the barren landscape like a monument to forgotten glory stood Blackwood Manor, its towers broken, its windows dark as the eyes of the dead. Amid the crumbling stone and overgrown thorns stood Elara Ashford, a woman the world had long ago dismissed. At 35, she had grown accustomed to invisibility. The neighbors whispered that she possessed the quiet intelligence of her scholarly father, the resilience of women who survive by being overlooked. Yet such qualities, rather than being valued, had become her sentence to obscurity. "Miss Ashford, you cannot mean to stay in this place." The trembling voice of the coachman cut through the wind's mournful cry. "They say the manor is cursed, that it devours everyone who tries to claim it." But Elara had already stepped through the rusted gates, her worn traveling cloak whipping around her like a shroud. She had inherited a ruin. She did not yet know she had inherited a kingdom. Oh, astonishing, isn't it? But before we reveal how this incredible moment came to be, I have a question for you. Do you believe that destiny is written in the stars, or do we make it ourselves? Let me know in the comments below, and tell me, where in the world are you watching from today? I love reading you stories. Now, settle in, hit that subscribe button to join our family, and let me tell you the truth about what really happened. The coach departed before the echo of its wheels had faded, the driver's fear more powerful than the promise of coin. Elara watched it disappear into the gathering mist, fighting the urge to call it back, to flee to the predictable misery of her former life. But there was nothing to return to. The relatives she had cared for were dead. The tiny rented room in London had been surrendered. Her entire existence fit into the single trunk now sitting in the mud before Blackwood Manor's massive oak doors. 35 years, she thought, staring at that pathetic trunk, reduced to this. The manor loomed above her, and for the first time, Elara truly looked at her inheritance. The building was enormous, far larger than she had imagined from the solicitor's dry description. 3 stories of gray stone, with towers that pierced the low clouds like accusing fingers. Ivy strangled the western wing, its tendrils forcing their way between stones, patient and destructive. Windows gaped empty, their glass long since shattered. The great iron gates she had passed through hung crooked on rusted hinges, their decorative scrollwork twisted as if by some violent hand. "This is mine," she thought, and could not tell if the flutter in her chest was terror or something dangerously close to exhilaration. The wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of decay, rotting leaves, stagnant water, something older and more unsettling beneath. The moors stretched in every direction, empty of human habitation. The nearest village was 5 miles distant. Here, she was alone with the ghosts of the Blackwood line. Her line, the solicitor had said, though she had never heard her mother speak of these distant relatives. The uncle who had left her this burden had been a stranger, a name mentioned once or twice in her childhood and never again. "Why me?" she had asked Mr. Pemberton, the solicitor. Why would he leave this to someone he never knew? The old man's expression had been strange, part pity, part something that looked almost like warning. "You are the last of the Ashford Blackwood blood, Miss Ashford. The very last. Your uncle spent his final years searching for you. He said it was essential that the estate remain in the family." Essential. The word had seemed melodramatic then. Now, standing before the decay of Blackwood Manor, it felt ominous. Elara forced herself to move, her practical boots squelching in the mud as she approached the entrance. The doors were oak, thick as a man's torso, carved with symbols she did not recognize. Intertwining roses and thorns, crowned serpents, Latin phrases worn smooth by centuries of weather. She tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. She fumbled in her reticule for the iron key Mr. Pemberton had given her. Absurdly large, its head decorated with the same crowned serpent as the door. The key slid into the lock with surprising ease, as if the mechanism had been waiting for precisely this moment. The door swung inward with a groan that sounded almost human. Darkness yawned before her, thick and absolute. The smell that emerged was overwhelming: mold, dust, the particular staleness of air that had not moved in decades. Elara stood on the threshold, every instinct screaming at her to run, to find the coachman, to beg passage back to London and the comforting anonymity of spinsterhood. Miss Ashford! Elara spun, her heart hammering. A woman had appeared as if from nowhere, thin, gray-haired, her severe face illuminated by the candle she carried. She wore black from neck to floor, her dress decades out of fashion. Mrs. Grimsby? Elara managed, recognizing the name of the housekeeper Mr. Pemberton had mentioned. The same. The woman's eyes were sharp, assessing. I wondered if you would come. Wondered if you would be like the others. Too frightened or too sensible to claim what's yours. Others. Your uncle tried to bring the family back. Cousins, distant relations. None would stay. This house. Mrs. Grimsby's gaze shifted to the dark doorway behind Elara, and something that might have been fear crossed her weathered features. This house demands much of those who would hold it. I don't intend to hold it, Elara said, forcing steadiness into her voice. I intend to sell it and settle the debts. Mr. Pemberton made it clear the estate is in financial ruin. Mrs. Grimsby's expression might have been pity, or perhaps satisfaction. Did he now? And did he mention that 3 buyers have tried to purchase Blackwood in the last 5 years, and all 3 are dead? The wind chose that moment to gust, slamming the great oak door fully open. The darkness inside seemed to pulse. That's servants' gossip, Elara said, though her voice wavered. Coincidence and superstition. Perhaps. Mrs. Grimsby stepped past her into the entrance hall, her candle pushing back a small circle of shadow. Or perhaps Blackwood Manor keeps its secrets close. Come inside, Miss Ashford. The moor is no place to linger after dark. Elara hesitated one final moment, looking back at the empty landscape, the distant gray line that might have been the road to civilization. Then she lifted her trunk, lighter than it should have been, a physical reminder of how little her life had amounted to, and crossed the threshold. The great hall was a cavern of shadows. Mrs. Grimsby's candle revealed glimpses. A vast fireplace filled with old ash, furniture draped in dusty sheets like corpses, a grand staircase ascending into darkness, and portraits, dozens of them, lining the walls, their subjects' eyes glinting in the candlelight. Your ancestors, Mrs. Grimsby said, following Elara's gaze. The Blackwood line, and your mother's people, the Ashfords. Both families, united in you. She paused, her candle raised toward a portrait of a severe man in medieval dress, a crown painted above his head. Your uncle spent his final years studying the family history, became obsessed with it, truth be told. He barely left the manor, barely ate. Just searching, always searching through the old papers and sealed rooms. Searching for what? Mrs. Grimsby's silence was answer enough. She didn't know, or wouldn't say. The manor has 40 rooms, the housekeeper continued, moving toward the staircase. Most are unsafe. The east wing's floor collapsed 2 winters past. The servants left years ago. I'm the only one who remained. Your uncle left provisions for my wages, but those funds are exhausted. I stayed out of duty, or perhaps curiosity. They climbed the stairs, each step creaking ominously. Elara glimpsed hallways branching in multiple directions, doors hanging open like mouths, wallpaper peeling in great strips. The debts? Elara forced herself to ask. How extensive are they? Extensive enough that you have perhaps 3 months before the creditors seize everything. Your uncle borrowed against the estate repeatedly in his final years, though I cannot say what he spent the money on. He ordered books, hired researchers, traveled to London on occasion. But there's nothing to show for it. 3 months. Elara felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders like a stone. Mrs. Grimsby stopped before a door at the end of the second-floor corridor. "This was your uncle's room. I've prepared it for you. It's the only chamber still properly furnished and safe." She pushed the door open, revealing a surprisingly intact space. A 4-poster bed, a writing desk, bookshelves lining 2 walls, a window overlooking the moors. "Thank you," Elara said. "I know my presence must be an inconvenience." "Your presence," Mrs. Grimsby interrupted, "is the most interesting thing to happen to Blackwood Manor in a decade. Sleep well, Miss Ashford. Or try to. The house is active. At night. Footsteps. Voices. Your uncle claimed he heard music from sealed rooms." She set the candle on the desk. "I've learned to ignore it. I suggest you do the same." Before Elara could respond, the housekeeper had vanished into the corridor's shadows, her footsteps fading impossibly fast. Alone, Elara turned to survey her new domain. The room was clean but heavy with the presence of its previous occupant. Books covered every surface, histories, genealogies, volumes in Latin and French. The desk was piled with papers covered in cramped handwriting. On the wall above the bed hung a portrait of a young woman in Elizabethan dress, her face bearing an unsettling resemblance to Elara's own. She moved to the window. Night had fallen completely, the moors invisible beyond the glass. But in the window's reflection, she could see the room behind her, and for just an instant, she thought she saw a figure standing in the doorway, watching. Elara spun around. Nothing. Empty corridor. Shadows and dust. Servants' gossip, she told herself. Old house. Nerves. But as she prepared for bed, pulling out her worn nightgown and attempting to make sense of the massive 4-poster, she could not shake the feeling that the house was watching. Waiting. That somewhere in its 40 rooms and crumbling corridors, Blackwood Manor held secrets that her uncle had died trying to uncover, and that now those secrets were hers to find, or to be destroyed by. She blew out the candle and lay in darkness, listening to the house settle around her. Creaks and groans, whispers that might have been wind or might have been something else. In the distance, she thought she heard footsteps, a door opening and closing, the faint sound of music from somewhere deep within the manor's heart. 3 months, she thought. 3 months to settle the debts or lose everything. Elara Ashford, the spinster of Ashford Street, closed her eyes and tried to sleep in the house that would change her life, though she did not yet know how profoundly or how dangerously. Outside, the wind carried the scent of rain and secrets across the empty moors. And in the locked attic, in a sealed chamber no one had entered for 100 years, an iron chest waited in darkness, holding the truth that would topple kingdoms. Morning brought no comfort to Blackwood Manor. Elara woke to gray light filtering through filthy windows and the sound of a carriage on the drive. She dressed hurriedly, her fingers clumsy with cold, and descended the creaking stairs to find Mrs. Grimsby opening the great doors to a man who commanded the entrance hall as if he owned it. He was tall, dark-haired, impeccably dressed in riding clothes that cost more than Elara had earned in a year of caring for the elderly. His face was sharp, aristocratic, handsome in the way that made her immediately distrustful. Power radiated from him like heat from a fire. "You must be Miss Ashford." His voice was smooth, cultured, dismissive. "Alexander Blackthorne, Duke of Thornfield. I've come to discuss Blackwood Manor." "There's nothing to discuss, Your Grace. I've only just arrived. Precisely why we should speak now, before you develop sentimental attachments to this ruin." He gestured at the crumbling walls as if they offended him personally. "I'm prepared to offer £8,000 for the estate. Enough to settle your uncle's debts with a modest sum remaining." Elara's breath caught. £8,000 was a fortune to her. But something in his casual certainty, his assumption of her desperation, ignited a spark she hadn't known still existed. "That's generous," she said carefully. "But I haven't yet decided to sell." His eyes widened fractionally, genuine surprise. "Miss Ashford, this manor is falling into the moor. The debts alone will consume any value. I'm offering you freedom from a burden that has destroyed everyone who tried to hold it." "Then why do you want it so badly, Your Grace?" The question hung between them, sharp as a blade. Something flickered in his expression. Anger, perhaps, or fear carefully masked. "The land has strategic value, but my reasons are my own." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker beneath. "Accept my offer, Miss Ashford. This house holds nothing for you but ruin. Then I'll discover that myself. Good day, Your Grace." She watched him leave, fury barely contained in the rigid line of his shoulders. Through the window, she saw him pause at his carriage, speaking urgently to his driver. Their gazes turned back to the manor, to her. Mrs. Grimsby appeared at her elbow. "That was unwise, miss. The Duke is not a man accustomed to refusal." Then it's time he learned. But Elara's hands trembled as she climbed back to her uncle's study. The Duke's desperation had been palpable. He didn't want Blackwood Manor. He needed it. The question was why. The study became Elara's sanctuary over the following days. While Mrs. Grimsby managed what little could be managed in the crumbling manor, Elara immersed herself in her uncle's papers. The man had been methodical, obsessive. Journals filled with genealogical charts, letters to historians, sketches of the manor's layout with certain rooms marked in red ink. One phrase appeared repeatedly. The true line must be restored. What line? Restored to what? The fragments made no sense, yet her uncle had spent years and a fortune pursuing this mystery. On the third night, Elara found the reference to the attic. A single line in a journal dated 6 months before his death. "The sealed chamber holds the answer. But I cannot find the key. Perhaps I am not meant to. Perhaps only the rightful heir." The entry ended there, the handwriting deteriorating into illegible scrawls. Elara stood, candle in hand, and made her way to the 3rd floor. The attic door was obvious. Larger than the others, bound with iron, its lock ancient and complex. She tried the handle knowing it would be futile. Locked, just as her uncle had written. "You shouldn't be up here." Elara spun, nearly dropping the candle. Mrs. Grimsby stood in the stairwell, her face grave. "My uncle wrote about a sealed chamber. That door has been locked for over a century. No one knows what's inside. Your uncle spent his final months trying to open it. Killed him in the end. The obsession consumed him until there was nothing left. Then why lock it at all? What's so dangerous about an attic?" Mrs. Grimsby's silence was answer enough. She didn't know, or wouldn't say. That night, Elara heard the footsteps, distinct, measured, pacing the corridor outside her room. She lit her candle and opened the door to emptiness. But in the dust that coated everything, she saw them clearly, boot prints, fresh, leading to and from the attic stairs. Someone had been in the manor, someone who knew about the sealed chamber. The Duke returned the next morning, his offer doubled. £16,000. His desperation barely concealed now. "What's in the attic, Your Grace?" Elara asked quietly. His face went white. "I don't know what you mean. Don't you? My uncle died searching for something in this house. You're desperate to buy it before I find whatever he was looking for. So tell me, what am I really inheriting?" He stepped close, and she saw genuine fear in his eyes. "There are secrets in this world that should remain buried, Miss Ashford. Powers that will destroy you if you insist on unearthing them. Take my money. Leave this place. Forget Blackwood Manor exists." Is that a threat? It's a warning. From someone who knows what you're facing. His hand touched hers, brief, electric. "Please." But Elara had spent 35 years accepting what others told her she deserved. She pulled away. No. After he left, she found the locksmith's address in the village. If her uncle couldn't open the attic, she would find someone who could. Whatever the Duke feared, whatever her uncle had died seeking, it was hers by right, and she would uncover it. The locksmith arrived on a morning wrapped in fog, an elderly man with tools that looked older than the manor itself. He studied the attic door for a long moment, running gnarled fingers over the iron bindings. "This is royal work," he said finally. 16th century, maybe earlier. Whoever sealed this didn't want it opened. "Can you do it?" He smiled, gap-toothed. "I can open anything, miss. Question is whether you should." Elara thought of the Duke's fear, her uncle's obsession, the boot prints in the dust. Open it. The work took hours. Mrs. Grimsby hovered anxiously, muttering about curses and fools. Elara ignored her, watching the locksmith work with tools that seemed almost surgical in their precision. The afternoon light was fading when the final tumbler clicked. The door swung inward on silent hinges. The attic was vast, stretching the length of the manor. Centuries of discarded lives filled the space, furniture draped in sheets, trunks spilling moth-eaten clothes, portraits of stern-faced ancestors watching from the shadows. Dust hung in the air like snow. "I'll be leaving now, miss," the locksmith said, pocketing his fee with unseemly haste. "Whatever you find up there, I want no part of it." Elara climbed alone, her candle pushing back the darkness. The attic creaked and settled around her, alive with whispers that might have been whined through broken slates or something more. She moved deeper past generations of Blackwood history until she reached the far wall. And stopped. The wall was wrong. She could see it now, the way the boards didn't quite align, the suspicious smoothness of what should have been rough timber. Elara pressed against it, feeling for gaps, for weakness. Her hand found a knot in the wood. She pushed. The false wall swung inward. Beyond was a chamber no larger than a closet, empty except for a single object sitting in the center of the floor, waiting as if it had known she would come. An iron chest, bound with chains, covered in royal seals that gleamed dully in the candlelight. The metal was black with age, the seals stamped with a crown she didn't recognize. More ornate than the current royal crest, older, stranger. Elara knelt before it, her hands shaking. The chest was locked with a mechanism unlike anything she'd seen. Concentric circles of metal that would need to align perfectly to open. She needed a key, a very specific key. Thunder rumbled outside. The storm her uncle had written about in his journals, the one that had driven him to madness trying to solve this final puzzle. Elara sat back on her heels, staring at the chest that had consumed his life. Where would he have hidden a key? Where would she hide something so precious, so dangerous? The answer came like lightning, in plain sight, in the one place no one would think to look because it seemed too obvious. Elara ran down the stairs, taking them two at a time, her candle guttering dangerously. She burst into her uncle's study and went straight to the bookshelf. Philosophy, history, genealogy, and there, a single book bound in cracked leather, its title worn away. She pulled it free. The weight was wrong, too light. Elara opened it to find the pages hollowed out, and nestled in that cavity, a key. Iron, ancient, its head designed to turn the concentric circles of the chest's lock. Her uncle had found it. He'd had the key all along, but he'd never used it. Why? What had stopped him at this final moment? Rain began to fall as Elara climbed back to the attic, the key burning in her palm like a living thing. Thunder shook the manor's foundations. Lightning illuminated the secret chamber in stark, momentary brightness. The chest waited. Elara inserted the key with trembling hands. Fit perfectly. One turn. Two. The concentric circles aligned with soft clicks that sounded like the tumblers of fate itself falling into place. The lock opened. Elara lifted the lid. The documents were pristine despite their age. preserved by the chest seal. Elara lifted them reverently, spreading them across the attic floor in the candlelight. Parchment covered in medieval script, wax seals dangling from ribbons, illuminated letters that glowed gold even in the dimness. She began to read. The first document was a genealogy, traced in meticulous detail from the 15th century forward. The Blackwood line, descending from Edward, Duke of Somerset, son of King Henry VI. Except Elara's breath caught, this Edward was not the Edward of official histories. This was a secret son, the true heir, hidden away when his father was deposed. The official line, the current royal family, descended from a usurper, a fraud installed through murder and political manipulation. Elara's hands shook as she reached for the next document. A letter, signed by a dying nobleman, confessing to the substitution. Names she recognized from history books, involved in treason so profound it had shaped centuries. And then she found her own name, not Elara but Ashford. The genealogy traced forward through time, through marriages and births, each generation recorded with the notation. True heir, bloodline preserved in secret. The line ended with her, Elara Ashford, last of the Blackwood line, last of the true royal blood. By law, by blood right, by every measure that mattered. She was the rightful Queen of England. The realization was paralyzing. The candle guttered in her shaking hand, throwing wild shadows across documents that could topple a dynasty. Thunder crashed overhead, and in that sound Elara heard the echo of civil war, of a nation torn apart by truth. She thought of the current king, elderly, beloved by his people, of the stability England had finally achieved after centuries of conflict, of the thousands who would die if she revealed what she held. And she thought of the Duke's desperate fear. He'd known. Somehow he'd known what Blackwood Manor contained. The crown had sent him to bury this secret forever. A sound from below, the great doors opening. Footsteps on the stairs, rapid, urgent. Elara gathered the documents hastily, shoving them back into the chest. She just closed the lid when the Duke burst into the attic, rain-soaked, wild-eyed. "Stop!" he commanded. "Don't open it. Please, Miss Ashford. If you've opened it, tell me you haven't read." He saw her face and knew. "God help us both," he whispered. "You know. I know that everything is a lie, that the crown sits on a throne built on murder and fraud. That my family, your family is dead." His voice cracked with desperation. "Everyone who knew this secret, everyone who tried to use it, died. The crown's agents have protected this lie for 4 centuries. They will not hesitate to kill you. Are you one of them? A crown agent sent to silence me?" The Duke's silence was answer enough. "Then do it," Elara said, standing, the chest between them. "Kill me. Destroy the evidence. Protect your lie." But he didn't move. He stared at her across the attic's shadows, this spinster who should have been nothing, who now held the power to destroy everything he'd been sent to protect. "I can't," he said finally. "God help me, I can't." And in his eyes, Elara saw something she hadn't expected. Truth. The Duke left before dawn, but his warning remained. "They're coming. People who make me look merciful. You have days at most. Destroy those documents and I can protect you. Keep them and you're already dead." Elara spent the morning hiding the chest in a new location, behind a loose stone in the cellar, wrapped in oilcloth against the damp. The documents she kept in her room, studying them obsessively, memorizing every name, every date, every piece of evidence that proved her impossible birthright. She couldn't destroy them. Not yet. Not until she understood what they truly meant. The accidents began that afternoon. A bookshelf in her uncle's study collapsed. She'd moved away seconds before. The stairs to the cellar, always treacherous, seemed to shift under her feet, sending her sprawling. Mrs. Grimsby found rat poison in the tea service, though neither of them kept poison in the house. "Someone wants you gone," the housekeeper said grimly. or wants you too frightened to stay. That night, Elara woke to the sound of her door opening. She lay frozen, watching a shadow move through her room, searching. The intruder went through her trunk, her writing desk, even lifted the mattress, looking for the documents. When the shadow left, Elara rose on shaking legs and locked her door. But locks meant nothing in a house this old. Someone had keys. Someone knew the manor's secrets. The Duke returned the next day, ostensibly to make another offer. But when Mrs. Grimsby left them alone in the drawing room, his facade crumbled. There was a fire in the village last night. The locksmith shop burned to the ground. He barely escaped with his life. The Duke's eyes were haunted. They're erasing everyone connected to you, to this house. Soon they'll come for you directly. Who are they? The Crown's most trusted advisors. Men who have protected the throne's secrets for generations. Men who believe that stability matters more than truth. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I was one of them. I am one of them. I was sent here to buy Blackwood Manor, find the evidence, destroy it. And you. Yet here I stand. Because He stopped, struggling with words that seemed to pain him. I was told you'd be like the others. Weak, easily frightened, desperate for money. I was supposed to manipulate you, seduce you if necessary, and once I had the documents, dispose of you quietly. Elara's blood ran cold. And now I find I can't do it. You're not what they said. You're not what I expected. His hand reached for hers, stopped. I'm trying to protect you the only way I know how. Destroy the documents. Accept a settlement. Disappear. Live your life. As a lie. As a living woman instead of a dead queen. The argument that followed was fierce, whispered urgently as rain began again outside. He told her of others who tried to use royal secrets as leverage, all found dead in apparent accidents. She countered with the injustice of a throne built on murder. Justice doesn't feed the living, he snapped. Your truth would start a civil war. Thousands would die. And for what? So you can wear a crown you never wanted. So the world knows who I am. The words hung between them, raw and honest. Not about the throne. About a woman who'd spent her life invisible, finally seeing a way to matter. The Duke's expression softened. I see who you are, Elara Ashford. Crown or no crown. His use of her given name was intimate, dangerous. Please, let me keep you alive. Before she could answer, glass shattered upstairs. They ran together, finding her bedroom window broken, rain pouring in. And on her bed, among the soaked papers, a note, written in an elegant hand. The documents. Tonight, or you burn with the house. The Duke read it, his face going white. They're here. They've run out of patience. He gripped her shoulders. We're leaving. Now, I'll take you to London. Hide you, buy us time. No. Elara pulled away, moving to her writing desk. She'd made a decision. I need to verify something first. If these documents are real, if they're authentic, then I need expert confirmation before I decide what to do with them. There's no time. Then make time, Your Grace. You say you want to protect me? Help me find the truth. Not your truth or the Crown's truth. The actual, verifiable truth. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he nodded. There's a historian in London. Discreet, brilliant, incorruptible. If anyone can authenticate medieval documents without alerting the Crown, it's him. The Duke moved to the broken window, scanning the darkness. But we leave tonight. This house is no longer safe. They departed in his carriage an hour later, the documents hidden in Elara's traveling cloak, the chest left behind in its hiding place. As Blackwood Manor disappeared into the rain and darkness, Elara wondered if she would ever see it again. And in the shadows of the moor, watchers noted their departure and sent word to London. The game had entered its final phase. The historian's home was a cluttered townhouse in Bloomsbury, every surface covered in books and artifacts. Professor Whitmore was elderly, white-haired, with eyes that missed nothing. He examined the documents for 3 hours while Elara and the Duke waited in tense silence. Finally, he looked up. These are authentic. 15th century parchment, period ink, seals that match royal archives. The genealogy is meticulous, cross-referenced with church records I can verify. He removed his spectacles, his expression grave. Miss Ashford, if you present these publicly, you will cause a constitutional crisis unlike anything England has seen since the Civil War. But are they true? Elara pressed. Is the current king illegitimate? According to these documents, and assuming the secret marriage they reference was valid, yes. You would have the stronger claim to the throne. He paused. You understand what this means? The implications. I understand that truth matters. Truth, Whitmore said softly, does not always serve justice, and justice does not always serve peace. You have a choice to make, young woman. But I beg you, make it wisely. They left as night fell, Elara clutching the documents that had been returned to her, the historian's warning echoing in her mind. The Duke was silent as his carriage rattled through London streets, his expression unreadable. Say it, Elara finally demanded. Whatever you're thinking, say it. I'm thinking that you're the most dangerous woman in England, and the most remarkable. He turned to face her fully. I've been lying to you from the beginning, about who I am, why I'm here, what I was ordered to do. I know. You were sent to kill me. Not just kill you, destroy you, make you disappear so thoroughly that no one would ever question what happened to the last Blackwood heir. His voice was hollow. I've done it before. I'm good at it. The crown trusts me because I've never failed. Elara's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. What changed? You did. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. You were supposed to be weak, desperate, easy to manipulate. Instead, you're strong, principled, impossible to control. You should have taken my money and run. You should have burned those documents the moment you found them. But you didn't. You demanded truth. You demanded to be seen. And that matters to you? More than it should. More than is safe for either of us. His grip tightened. Elara, I came to your room tonight to make one final offer. Not from the crown. From me. What offer? Marry me. The words struck like lightning. Elara stared at him, speechless. Not for love, though God help me. That's becoming terrifyingly real. For protection. He spoke rapidly now, urgent. As my Duchess, you'd have the protection of my name, my resources, my position. I can keep you safe from the crown's agents. We can hide the documents, preserve them for history without triggering war. You'd have everything you've been denied. Respect, security, a life that matters. Everything except the truth. The truth will get you killed. The Duke's composure cracked. They will not let you live, Elara. They will hunt you until you're dead or silenced. Marriage to me is the only way I can protect you without destroying everything you've discovered. By burying it forever. By preserving it for when the world is ready. Perhaps in 100 years, when the current line has ended naturally, when revealing the truth won't mean war. His hands framed her face. I'm trying to save you. Don't you understand? I'm failing at my mission, betraying my oath, risking everything. Because I cannot bear to see you destroyed. Elara pulled away, her heart hammering. You're asking me to marry my would-be assassin and bury the truth of who I am. How is that different from the life I already had? Invisible, silenced, existing only as someone convenient for others. Because you'd be alive. Because we'd preserve the documents. Because he stopped struggling. Because I love you. God help me, I do. And love makes me weak. The carriage stopped. They'd arrived at a safe house the Duke maintained. a modest townhouse where Elara could stay without attracting notice. The Duke handed her down, his touch lingering. "Think about it," he said quietly. "But think quickly. My superiors know I've failed to secure the documents. They'll send someone else. Someone less conflicted about killing you." He left her at the door, driving away into the London night. Elara stood alone with the documents that made her queen and the impossible choice before her. Marry the Duke and bury the truth, or reveal everything and watch the nation burn. She climbed to her borrowed room and spread the documents on the bed, staring at centuries of secrets, at names and dates and proof of who she was. And for the first time, Elara Ashford wondered if being seen was worth dying for. Outside, in the London darkness, other carriages moved through the streets, other agents closing in. The Duke had been right about one thing: time was running out. Elara spent the night reading her ancestors' letters, piecing together the history that had been hidden for centuries. They had lived and died in shadows, the true royal line, always knowing who they were but never claiming it. Some had tried and been destroyed for it. Others had accepted exile, choosing survival over birthright. What would they want her to do? The answer came in a letter dated 1588, written by Lady Catherine Blackwood to her daughter. "Truth is a weapon that wounds both wielder and target. Use it wisely or not at all. But remember, survival without purpose is merely a slower death. Choose the life that gives you meaning, even if it costs you everything." Dawn found Elara at the writing desk, composing a letter. Not to the Duke, to the crown itself. She'd found her third path. The Duke arrived at noon, haggard, clearly sleepless. "Have you decided?" "I have, but I need your help with something first. I need a meeting with the crown's advisors. The ones who sent you." His face went white. "That's suicide. Or negotiation." Elara handed him her letter. "Read it." He did, his expression shifting from horror to disbelief to something that might have been admiration. "You want to offer them a deal. I want to offer them certainty. They fear what I might do with these documents. I'm offering to give them that control on my terms. They'll never agree. They will, because the alternative is worse." Elara stood, facing him fully. "I could go public today, reveal everything, plunge England into constitutional crisis. Or I could accept your proposal, hide the documents, and live in fear that someday someone else will find them and use them. Both options leave them vulnerable. And your third option? A binding agreement. I destroy the most damaging documents, the ones that prove fraud and murder. But the genealogy gets sealed in royal archives, to be opened by my descendants in 100 years. I receive a title, independence, and the crown's protection. And most importantly, the truth is preserved, but cannot harm the present." The Duke stared at her. "You'd give up the throne?" "I never wanted the throne. I wanted to be seen, to matter, to have agency over my own life." Elara's voice was steady. "This way everyone gets what they need. The crown gets stability. History gets truth eventually. And I get to live. As my wife. As my own woman first. If you can accept that, then perhaps we can discuss the rest." She met his eyes. "But I won't marry for protection, Alexander. Only for partnership. Only if you see me as an equal." The Duke was silent for a long moment. Then he did something she never expected. He knelt. "I see you, Elara Ashford. I see your strength, your intelligence, your courage. I see the woman who refused every easy path and demanded better. And I am asking, not as a duke, not as a crown agent, but as a man who loves you. Will you let me stand beside you as you forge this impossible peace?" Elara's breath caught. This was not the proposal of convenience he'd offered before. This was real. First, the negotiation. Then we'll see. He rose, a genuine smile breaking through his worry. "You're terrifying. The crown has no idea what's coming." The meeting was arranged for that evening, in a private room at Whitehall. 5 men arrived, elderly, powerful, radiating the confidence of those who'd shaped nations from shadows. They listened to Elara's proposal with expressions ranging from disbelief to fury. "You're asking us to legitimize a claim we've spent centuries erasing," the eldest said. "I'm offering you certainty. A signed agreement, witnessed, legally binding. The current monarchy continues unchallenged. The truth is preserved but sealed. Everyone wins. Except you. You lose a throne." Elara smiled. "I never wanted a throne. I wanted a life. This gives me that." The negotiation lasted hours. They tried intimidation. She didn't flinch. They tried bribery. She refused. They tried threats. And the Duke, standing beside her, made clear those threats would go through him first. In the end, exhaustion and pragmatism won. An agreement was drafted. Blackwood Manor would be restored through Crown funds, disguised as architectural preservation. Elara would receive the title of Lady Ashford of Blackwood and an independent income. The genealogy would be sealed in royal archives, to be opened in 1987, 100 years hence. The documents proving fraud would be destroyed in a witness ceremony. "And Miss Ashford receives full protection from Crown agents," the Duke added, "including amnesty for this entire affair. She lives unmolested." The eldest advisor's eyes narrowed. "You've become quite protective of your target, Blackthorn." "She's not my target anymore. She's going to be my wife." The statement sent ripples through the room. But in the end, they agreed. What choice did they have? Elara held proof that could destroy them, and she was offering them survival. The ceremony took place at midnight. In a fireplace at Whitehall, Elara burned the letters confessing to murder, the documents proving fraud. She kept only the genealogy, which was sealed in an iron box and locked in the royal archives. As the last document turned to ash, she felt something lift. Not loss, but liberation. She'd preserved the truth without demanding justice. She'd chosen peace over vengeance. "It's done," the Duke said quietly, standing beside her as the ashes cooled. "You're safe now." "We're safe," she corrected. "Both of us." They left Whitehall as dawn broke over London. The agreement signed and witnessed, the future secured. Elara Ashford had changed history not by claiming a throne, but by choosing wisdom over power. And that, she thought, was a far greater victory. 6 months later, spring came to Blackwood Manor. The estate had been transformed. Crown funds, disguised as a historical preservation grant, had restored the crumbling walls, replaced the broken windows, brought the gardens back to life. Scaffolding still surrounded the east wing, but the main house stood proud once more, its towers whole, its stones cleaned of decades of decay. Elara stood in the entrance hall, now lit by sunlight streaming through restored glass, and barely recognized the ruin she'd inherited. The portraits of her ancestors had been cleaned and rehung, their stern faces watching over a house that had finally found peace. Mrs. Grimsby appeared, carrying correspondence. "More letters from the village, my lady. Families wishing to enroll their daughters in your school." The school, Elara's greatest achievement, greater even than saving the estate. She'd established it in Blackwood's restored West Wing, a boarding school for girls who, like her, had been overlooked. Girls from modest backgrounds who showed intelligence and promise but lacked opportunities. "Tell them we have room for 20 more students this year," Elara said. "And Mrs. Grimsby? Stop calling me my lady. You know I prefer Elara." The housekeeper smiled. "Old habits, miss, but I'll try." As she left, Elara heard the sound of carriages on the drive. Students returning from the village, laughing and talking. The house that had been silent for so long now rang with young voices, with life and possibility. The transformation still amazed her. 6 months ago, she'd been the spinster of Ashford Street, invisible and insignificant. Now she was Lady Ashford of Blackwood, founder of a school that would educate hundreds of girls who might otherwise have been forgotten. She changed history, not through royal blood, but through choice. You look pleased with yourself. Elara turned to find Alexander standing in the doorway, mud on his boots from riding. He'd been to London on business but had returned early, unable to stay away. I am pleased. 20 new students. The school is succeeding beyond my hopes. Because you're teaching them what you learned, that they have value beyond what society tells them. He crossed to her, his expression softening. You're changing more lives than any crown ever could. Their relationship had been carefully rebuilt over these months. After the agreement with the crown, Alexander had resigned his position as an agent, unable to continue serving those he'd lost faith in. He'd courted Elara properly this time. No manipulation, no secrets, just honest affection and growing respect. And slowly, carefully, she'd learned to trust him. I have something for you, he said now, pulling a small box from his pocket. Elara's breath caught. Alexander, I asked you once before for the wrong reasons. I'm asking again, for the right ones. He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band. Not because I want to protect you. You've proven you can protect yourself. Not because it's convenient or strategic, but because I love you, Elara Ashford. Because you made me believe that truth matters more than comfort, that courage means choosing the difficult path. Will you marry me? Not as a duchess who needs a duke, but as a partner who wants an equal. Elara looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. 6 months ago, he'd been her enemy. Now he was the person who knew her best, who'd stood beside her through negotiations and danger, who'd chosen her over his oath. Yes, she said simply, but on one condition. Anything. We tell our children the truth. When they're old enough, when the time is right, we tell them who they descend from. Not so they can claim thrones, but so they know their history. Alexander slid the ring onto her finger. Agreed. Though I suspect our children will be more interested in the fact that their mother built a school and negotiated with the crown than in ancient genealogies. Good. That's a better legacy anyway. They stood together in the restored entrance hall, surrounded by portraits of ancestors who'd lived and died in shadows. But Elara had chosen differently. She'd brought truth into light without burning the world down. She'd claimed her agency without demanding a crown. That evening, the Duke, soon to be her husband, rode back to his own estate. Elara climbed to the... Dear viewer, what part of this journey touched your heart or surprised you today? If you'd enjoy more historical love stories filled with healing and hope, let me know below. Please like, subscribe, and share to help others find these stories too. Thank you for spending your precious time here. Your next beautiful story is waiting on the screen.